RRS, which I believe, as you say, is Ralph, asks, question for Dave. Do you consider anti-work and anti-ability? Again, I've seen lots of both, to be implicit in your consideration of the negative impact on society. Certainly your own work/ability/success was impeded, at the very least. I guess I would answer the question in terms of ants and grasshoppers, the ants who labor and provide for themselves, and the grasshoppers who basically fritter everything away and fritter away their own opportunities and their own security, and then run into a bad situation when winter arrives or whatever. The whole ant and the grasshopper thing. Through COVID-19, I think we're arriving at a new place as a society. The ants and the grasshoppers were both forced to stay home and just watch TV. And from what it sounds like, just worse and worse TV. Like Netflix going out and finding Scandinavian detective series and things like that. So we always have something new here because we don't have anything new here. Nothing new is getting made. So, if you want to watch Netflix, it's like, well, okay, what's the least disinterested that I am in the stuff that I haven't already watched? Is there anything that I want to watch again? That's a very new thing. We have arrived at the point that we started at in the 1950s for the people who all wanted to live inside their televisions. And it's like, well, now you can. And not only can you live inside your TV, you can't do anything else. All you can do is stay at home. If you don't get rid of your TV, you're going to spend a lot of time watching TV. You're going to spend now a whole year. I think we have to cross-reference that and triage that with the fact that the Fed can't lower or raise interest rates because the interest rates are as low as they can get without going into negative interest rates. And the specs on that from places like Japan are not good. So if you can't raise or lower interest rates, you can't raise them because you're going to eradicate whole chunks of your economy of the people who are overextended, and if they suddenly have to pay real interest rates like we used to, they're out of the game. You also can't stop creating money. Like all of the G7 countries are creating money out of thin air. It's borrowed money. We're talking about debt that's delusional. When the U.S. creates $4 trillion and then creates another 1.9 trillion on top of that, just because of the squeamishness of we can't really create another 2 trillion, we'll make it sound less. So we'll make it 1.9 trillion. It's like $1 trillion is relative to $1 billion. If you paid off tried to pay off a $1 billion debt, it's going to take you years, if not decades. Once you're up to $1 trillion and it's compounding, you're talking centuries, and not even plausibly centuries. So all of the debt, all of the money is delusional. We also know now that you can have a good 25 to 40% of your economy wiped out, literally wiped out. Businesses that they were marginal to begin with, or they didn't have enough cash on hand, and they're gone. They're not coming back. New York City is like a ghost town for storefronts and stuff like that. That happens, and the stock market stays solid. It's like, well, okay, this is one of the things that you've been paranoid about since 1929. When does that happen again? When does it get wiped out? And it's like, it doesn't. You've really, you've plugged all the leaks, but you just stuffed bandages into some holes and rags into others, and others you've got chewing gum and spit. But the whole thing's held together, and you are able to create money with impunity. So cycling around this, back to the question, it's I think we just have to get used to the fact that, okay, we're not talking about debt, and we're not talking about we have to get the economy back under control, and we've got to get spending under control. We need smaller government. It's like the government is the size of the government. Now it's a matter of, well, why not create $10 trillion? Why not create $15 trillion? But instead of pumping it all in at the top to make sure that the stock market keeps going, and to make sure that you can have zero interest rates, and to make sure that you're not putting taxes up. That's the other one. You can't raise taxes because it's like you just came through a pandemic where half of your economy is wiped out, and the other one is just sort of staggering around, wondering what happens next. You can't tax those people more than they've already been taxed. So start creating money at both ends. It's like the same thing that they're doing with COVID-19. Protect the most vulnerable. Okay, do the same thing with money. It's like, here's the 100,000, 200,000, 2 million, 8 million, 15 million poorest people in the United States. Send them all a United States government credit card and tell them, okay, your credit card is prepaid up to $25,000, $50,000, $75,000. It doesn't matter. You're making numbers up. That money is never going to exist. You could never print that much money. You could never print $1 trillion. If Joe Biden ends up being president for 8 years, in 8 years you could probably print $250 billion if you had every printing press in the United States running 24/7. So, but it's like we don't do that anymore. We don't have to print money. We just have to print credit cards and put a code on it, and there you go. This is how much money you'll have to spend. Now, you don't get anything else. We don't have government programs for you, and we don't have things financed for you. Here's enough money for you to keep yourself alive. You can't keep yourself alive now. We can't help you. That's my theory, is that we have to just look at where we are. We can't get out of here anymore. We're all socialists now. We are all money printers. We're all Venezuela. It's just different degrees of being Venezuela. The Canadian dollar is going up in value, which is really killing my whole business model, because it's based on the Canadian dollar being worth substantially less than the U.S. dollar. That's just Justin Trudeau not printing as much money as Donald Trump and Joe Biden have. It's a really basic formula. They try and make it sound complicated, but it's just Canada can print 10% of the money that the United States prints, because we're 1/10 the size. We're 38 million people instead of 380 million people. And it's like Justin Trudeau has only spent $700 billion, is only talking about a debt of $1 trillion. If Joe Biden keeps printing money, and he pretty well has to keep printing money, then it just means that Justin Trudeau has that much more room on his credit card. He doesn't have to worry until he gets up to probably $2 trillion? We're up to $1 trillion now, so you could probably double that in the length of time that the United States will be getting up to whatever numbers they get up to. It's like they're just numbers. They're just numbers. It's just a 1 now, and then pick the number of zeros that you have after it. It's 12 zeros. Okay, well, 12 zeros. Let's go for 13. I'm at the point of forget trillions. Let's just go right to quadrillions. What do you say? Everybody can have as much money as they ever wanted, and the ants can continue to be ants. This is where I get back to my original point. The ants can continue to be ants because we're ants. We work. We save. We try to keep our spending under control. We try to have everything make sense. The grasshoppers don't. However much money you give a grasshopper, the grasshopper is just going to spend it and just wants to make enough money. So all they have to do is stay home and watch TV. And in Canada, smoke pot and drink beer and whatever else. It's like instead of trying to figure out how to turn a grasshopper into an ant or train them to be ants or give them their own social worker to try and get them to understand ant thinking, just forget it. They're grasshoppers. Invent enough money so that they can do what they're already doing, and they will live very, very placidly, just plugged into their television and their cell phone and their Twitter feed, and you can stop worrying about them. It's like, well, we just gave them another $20,000. Most of them, that should hold them. Most of the homeless people are proving, when they do just give them a chunk of money, it's like a percentage of them don't fritter it away. They're instinctive ants. They just ended up homeless. Some of them had a divorce where they lost everything, or whatever grisly story that they have. But most of these people are just looking for the most minimal kind of livelihood. They have this circle of friends, and they spend their money on what they spend it on, and I think we're already there. I'm just saying everybody's acting as if somehow the G7 countries are going to pay back the debt that they're talking about. They couldn't pay back the debt that they had a year ago before all of this hit. Where they think that they're going to, where would Canada get $1 trillion? $1 trillion from what? That's a lot of maple syrup. That's a lot of beaver pelts. It's not going to happen. It's not going to happen.
Right.
So that was my last question. So y'all would probably be better asking me about comic book stuff, because once I get started on these things, it's like I've been watching all of this a long time. I'm up to the point now where I'm reading 4 or 5 newspapers a week, because the newspapers are getting thinner and thinner, and they're all getting crazier and crazier, trying to figure out how to be responsible citizens when they want to say, none of this makes sense, this is all completely insane, and now we're becoming co-responsible for it, because we have to keep writing these articles about COVID-19 as if any of this makes any kind of sense. And it's like, yeah, I don't think it is. I think we've gone as far down the road as we can. The whole Republican conservative side, which is my side. I mean, this is complete vested interest. The small government, low taxes, all those kinds of things. It's just not going to happen anymore. It's you dig this deep a hole, and there's no way that you're going to dig yourself out of the hole, because you're just digging faster and faster. So start dealing with the problems on their own terms. Well, and now I am coming up on my last prayer time.
Really quick, during our last break, I found my service number 1. I have, it's a final proof, 50 copies. It's stamped office copy. So I don't know if that's one of the 8 or not.
Stamped office copy, like with
like a rubber ink stamp.
Okay.
Because it's 50 copies, and there's a white circle for putting the number of which of the 50 it is, and it's stamped office copy.
Okay. What? Okay, so it's not a number on it?
No. It just says final proof June 2020, 50 copies, and there's a white circle, and in that is a blue office copy.
Okay.
Showing the folks at home.
That's when I would start wondering, okay, how many office copies are there?
Well, this is also it's the 22-page or 24-page reproduction that has the $1 price tag on the cover, as opposed to the expanded version that has the $20 price tag.
Right.
And the copy of that I have is, let me click this open quick. It's a publisher proof from April 2020.
Okay.
And it isn't numbered. No. So I will ask Dagan. I probably have an email that I just forgot about that explains what's what.
Yeah, I think it's definitely worth looking into in terms of this is as small as the problem is going to get, because Dagan's going to be publishing more stuff for people to buy and more versions of different stuff. A moment of service would be the good place to say, if you want to know, here's all of the Waverly Press stuff, and this will tell you what you have in terms of the description. And you could just look up office copy. How many office copies are there of this edition?
Right.
Okay, thanks, Matt.
Thanks, Dave.
Say hello to Paula and Natasha and Janice for me.
Will do.
Talk to you next month.
Talk to you next month.
Bye-bye.